Our journey to Star Wars The Force Awakens is almost at an end, so let's celebrate the release of the new film by reviewing the latest Star Wars novel, set to be the first in a 3-part series, as a band of unlikely heroes are all that stand between the galaxy's newfound freedom and the Empire's vengeful fury, in Aftermath by Chuck Wendig. The second Death Star has been destroyed, the Emperor Palpatine and Darth Vader are both dead, and the rebels finally stand triumphant against the Empire's terrible regime of power. So now what? The battle for freedom is all but complete, and so the New Republic, formerly the Rebel Alliance, decide to reap the benefits of victory by pursuing the enemy's newly divided forces before they can reunite and retaliate. But while out on the lone mission to the isolated planet Akiva, pilot Wedge Antilles is captured by an Imperial fleet after discovering Star Destroyers seemingly gathered in wait. On the planet's surface, former Rebel fighter Nora Wexley returns home to reunite with her estranged son and hopefully start a new life someplace else. But after picking up Wedge Antilles' distress call, she realises her time as a freedom fighter hasn't ended yet, even if she doesn't know the whereabouts of her enemy or just how dangerous this mission will turn out to be. Meanwhile, the surviving Imperial leaders, still licking their wounds after the most devastating loss yet, are meeting up in Akiva for a top-secret emergency summit in which they plan to maintain their rule by assembling a counter-strike. But little do they realise that Nora is hot on their trail and accompanied by a hastily formed crew that consists of her son Temin, a streetwise computer genius, his droid companion Mr. Bones, a Zabrak bounty hunter called Jazimari, and an Imperial defector named Sinjir Raph. United by fate, yet constantly on the run, this team of reluctant rebels soon realise that they must set aside their differences and do whatever it takes to end the Empire's oppressive reign once and for all. Because, in spite of everything, the war is not over. The question of what happens after the heroes in storybooks save the day and live happily ever after has been touched upon plenty of times in fiction before, from the Stephen Sondheim musical Into the Woods to the Shrek franchise. Even the Star Wars movies explored and subverted the traditional happy ending, because while Luke Skywalker initially defeats the Empire by blowing up the Death Star at the end of the first film, his actions are shown to have grave consequences during The Empire Strikes Back. Therefore, it makes perfect sense for this book to concentrate on the titular aftermath following the events of the previous trilogy. As much as we all love seeing our heroes celebrated on Endor, having finally defeated the Empire and completed their journey together, the more realistic side of our brain knows that war still causes a lot of disorder and devastation long after it has ended. And Chuck Wendig mostly succeeds in conveying this harsh yet obvious truth by not only showing both sides of the conflict trying to bring their brand of order to a galaxy that's still in the process of change, but by scattering brief interludes throughout the story showing how different planets and citizens are coping with all of this. These short chapters are without a doubt the strongest part of the novel, because they manage to perfectly describe the mixed emotions one might feel upon having their whole world and belief system turned upside down, while also exploring familiar settings and faces from the Star Wars universe that are bound to please long-term fans. My only issue with them is that because of their deliberate briefness, some of these scenes tend to either leave too many unanswered questions, or subtly take a very dark, almost pessimistic tone that just seems a little out of place for something like Star Wars. For example, the prologue shows the scene at the end of Return of the Jedi where the Emperor's statue gets pulled down on the planet Coruscant, a moment which in the movie is accompanied by fireworks and cheering and just a general sense of joy and freedom. But here, it's immediately followed by the sudden arrival of the Imperial police as they attempt to control the protesters through violence, culminating in a gruesome and rather tragic riot between the citizens and a still powerful law. Among the activists are a father and son, the latter of whom is clearly too young to fight and unprepared for this turn of events. Over the din he yells, "But the battle station was destroyed, Dad! The battle is over!" They just watched it only an hour before, the supposed end of the Empire, the start of something better. The confusion in the boy's shining eyes is clear. He doesn't understand what's happening, but Rorak does. He's heard tales of the Clone Wars, tales spoken by his own father. He knows how war goes. It's not many wars, but just one, drawn out again and again, cut up into slices so it seems more manageable. For a long time he's told his son not the truth, but the idealised hope. One day the Empire will fall and things will be different for when you have children. And that may still come to pass. But now a stronger, sharper truth is required. Jack, the battle isn't over. The battle is just starting. You can tell from that opening scene that this is not going to be a happy Star Wars adventure suitable for all ages. On a much lighter note, the main characters in Aftermath are all excellent. Nora Wexley, the rebel pilot who's all but retired, makes a cool and interesting heroine, as we get to see her as not only a brave, determined fighter with a strong resolve to fighting for justice, but also as a caring, protective mother struggling to physically and emotionally reconnect with her teenage son Temin after having been away for so long. Temin himself is also a great character, as he's been through a lot of hardships during his life so far. His father, Nora's husband, was arrested and snatched from their home by stormtroopers, never to be seen again. And with his mother off fighting a war and leaving him on his own for the past 3 years, he's had to make a living for himself by working in the black market, building and selling droids for bounty hunters and other dangerously unimpressionable folk. So, as you can imagine, Nora and Temin's reunion is understandably frosty and wrought with tension from both sides. Even more so once Nora receives Wedge Antilles' call for help and seems to almost immediately disappear from Temin's life all over again. Their relationship reminds me a lot of Sarah and John Connor in Terminator 2, as mother and son try to get along in the face of a dangerous oncoming menace, both of them slowly rebuilding their once broken bond over the course of events, while discovering that they're just as tough and capable as each other. It may not be an original character dynamic, but it's still gripping to read, and it definitely managed to keep me emotionally invested. First to join Nora and Temin on their journey is the latter protagonist's only friend, a reprogrammed Trade Federation battle droid named Mr. Bones. While my own childhood memories of the prequel films are vague at best, I do recall thinking that the battle droids had a pretty interesting design, so I liked seeing one of them make an appearance in this book as a major character. Mr. Bones is a darkly humorous sidekick and mascot, cheerfully proclaiming his loyalty to Temin while brutally slaughtering enemies on sight. And it's good to see some continuity reference to the prequels. For better or worse, they're still a major part of Star Wars canon. The later additions to the team, Sinjir Raf Velus and Jaz Amari, are also very good characters, having both deserted their former positions and are at a crossroads during the turning point of the Galactic War. Despite having once worked for opposite sides, the two of them are rather alike. Sinjir used to be an Imperial officer, but he deserts from the Empire during the first act of the story for obvious moral reasons. And Jaz Amari is also starting to question the ethics of her job as a bounty hunter. And even though everyone has been unexpectedly thrust together against their own desires, and are initially begrudging about having to work alongside each other as a team, this band of rebels proved to become a powerful force with their combined strength and knowledge. And they just might be enough to defeat what's left of the Empire and save Wedge Antilles from the cold hand of Admiral Ray Sloane. Sloane, by the way, is a wonderfully written villain, a ruthless counterpart to the heroic Nora. In the last video, I talked about how the main theme of Lost Stars was love surviving war and corruption, and I think that Aftermath has a similar message while focusing on a different kind of love. This story is about family and the importance of belonging, as demonstrated through its leading protagonists. The war has taken its toll on everyone, and despite the promise of hope on the horizon, this new period of transition hasn't necessarily made anything easier. We see during the interludes that there are still so many planets yet to be completely liberated from Imperial law, that countless lives have been left traumatised after years of never-ending chaos and uncertainty, and their relationship with the powers above is just as fractured as ever. At the start of our adventure, our heroes are in this shared tumultuous state. But as they slowly begin to bond with one another and unite over a common cause of justice and freedom for all, the future seems less frightening and easier to face now that they're together. The five of them have become a family for all intents and purposes, and the fact that each member comes from a different walk of life within the Star Wars universe, rebels, Imperials, bounty hunters, droids, seems to inadvertently symbolise the galactic harmony that could easily be achieved one day with effort and time. Star Wars has always been about the power of companionship and compassion against evil, and this book is no different, which is what makes it so good. Before we move on, there's one other thing about Aftermath that's particularly worth mentioning, which is its introduction of some of the first gay characters in the official Star Wars canon. Early on in the story, we're briefly introduced to Nora's sister Esmel and her wife Shireen, a nice older lesbian couple who once tried to raise Temin during his mother's absence. And another character also reveals their sexuality over the course of events. I won't say who due to spoilers, but you'll be relieved to hear that while it is an unexpected moment, there's no real shock value or unhappiness surrounding the revelation, and the person it relates to is treated by both the characters around them and the narrative just the same as ever. It goes without saying that this is a huge, wonderful thing to see in Star Wars at last, and a lot of fans out there were more than happy with the LGBT elements featured in this story, because it's still something that you rarely see in science fiction, even in 2015. However, discussion of anything remotely progressive always seems to attract the bigots who came out of the shadows to complain about the mere existence of gay characters in Star Wars. You know, because that's the worst, most unrealistic thing to ever happen in the franchise. This is what the author, Chuck Wendig, had to say in response to the criticisms. If you're upset because I put gay characters and a gay protagonist in the book, I got nothing for you. You're not the Rebel Alliance. If you're upset because I put gay characters and a gay protagonist in the book, I got nothing for you. You're not the Rebel Alliance. You're not the good guys. You're the fucking Empire, man. You're the shitty, oppressive, totalitarian Empire. If you can imagine a world where Luke Skywalker would be irritated that there were gay people around him, you completely missed the point of Star Wars. It's like trying to picture Jesus kicking lepers in the throat instead of curing them. Stop being the Empire, join the Rebel Alliance. We have love and inclusion and great music and cute droids. Just awesome. Now, as I briefly mentioned during the introduction, this is in fact the first part of a planned trilogy, which certainly explains some of the few problems I had with the novel in terms of the writing and, in a way, the fact that it takes place between two major Star Wars movies, one of which has only just come out. Because while it is an excellent post-Return of the Jedi book, it doesn't really work well as a pre-The Force Awakens book. Sure, there's plenty of references to the previous Star Wars films, as well as a few hints that will hopefully be paid off sometime in the future, but any direct references to the new movie are few and extremely hard to spot. If you're looking for a novel that serves as an extended prologue to The Force Awakens, then I'm afraid you probably won't find it here. With that said, I do give Chuck Wendig credit for wanting to write his own original story taking place within the universe of Star Wars, rather than just rehashing old characters we've already seen before but in slightly different situations. And fortunately, the world that he's invented is fascinating and creative enough to overlook the flaws, making it a promising introduction to what is set to be a new epic adventure. Overall, Aftermath is unquestionably the most unique and adventurous of all the books that I've reviewed for this short series of videos. You could argue that the reason for this is because it's aimed at a much older audience than the others, and therefore doesn't have any restrictions over the maturity of the content within the story. Although I personally think that it's more than that. This novel proves that you can have a great story set during the events after the original trilogy, while still capturing your heart and introducing a new group of timeless characters to the world's lore. But it also goes one step beyond by literally kickstarting its own trilogy. It presents to us a completely new world which only could have existed after what happened during the last film. It creates even more awesome heroes with individual, well-written relationships and motivations. And above all, it manages to show this with beautiful prose and an excellent sense of imagination. This is a fantastic sign of things to come, not just for the Aftermath series of novels or even the upcoming movies, but perhaps for the Star Wars franchise as a whole. It makes me so happy to witness the most popular sci-fi story of all time entering the Renaissance age, with more original tales being introduced to the next generation of fans, and you'd have to be completely cynical to deny that this is, for lack of a better term, a force for good. Just like how certain galaxy far, far away goes through colossal shifts between peace and tyranny, while still somehow managing to stand in one piece, Star Wars will always find a way to entertain us, excite us, scare us, break our hearts, make us laugh, and keep us emotionally invested in their timeless tale of good triumphing over evil. And besides, what better way to witness the new dawn than through an awakening? And thus we conclude our journey for now. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed this mini vlog series. Please like and comment on this video, as well as on the previous Star Wars book reviews. And be sure to subscribe to my channel, follow me on all appropriate social media sites, and I hope to see you again soon. Bye everyone!